We're being questioned and criticized by people who do nothing. And that's why I'm so tight-lipped on it, because I'm like, I don't owe you no answers. On top of the fact you never donated, on top of the fact you never drove by there and picked up a piece of trash, you questioning something that you don't support financially, you questioning something that you've never been a part of in your entire life. You've never been a part of anything that progressive as building an institution. So why are you expecting me to be accountable to you?
So, Dr. Umar Johnson hasn't appeared on a podcast in quite some time. Lately, there have been rumors that most shows simply don't want to feature him anymore. Some say producers are avoiding him altogether. But the Danza Project seems to be proving those rumors wrong. The Danza Project is a popular podcast that focuses on hip-hop, black culture, and urban issues. They recently invited Umar onto the show and recorded the episode last week. Realizing that people are eager to hear from Umar, or even criticize him, they decided to release a 16-minute preview clip ahead of the full 45-minute to hour-long interview, which is expected to drop on Wednesday. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Danza wasted no time getting straight to the point. He raised a question many people have been wondering: what exactly is Umar doing? Danza expressed frustration with the vague claims that Umar is out here doing the work. He challenged that idea, saying he's only seen Umar attending events and giving speeches, but not actually working with children or directly serving the community. Danza pressed further, asking, what children is he working with? What community projects is he involved in? He called on people to stop repeating empty claims without evidence, saying it doesn't reflect well on Umar's image. But what stood out most was the way Danza framed the question itself. It wasn't just criticism, it was an attempt to hold Umar accountable. And that, more than anything, set the tone for what was to come in the rest of the interview.
And when I mean working, you're doing a lot more than most.
Yes, sir.
Right, like
yes,
it's
sir.
not just the conversations that you're having on podcasts. It's the works that you're doing in the communities.
Right.
The conversations that you're having with the youth and with people in general. Mm-hmm. Where are you at mentally right now? How do you feel?
When asked about his current mental state, the question should ideally prompt a thoughtful and grounded response, something like, I'm doing well. I make time to recharge. I focus on family, we have regular devotion and prayer, I stay active by running or lifting weights, and I've even taken up new hobbies to keep my mind balanced. That's the kind of answer you'd expect, one that shows how he maintains his mental health and stability, especially given the stressful environment he's in. But instead, watch closely how Umar responds. I have to give credit to the Danza Project for asking such a meaningful question, but honestly, Umar's reply feels dismissive, almost like he's not taking it seriously. It's as if he's putting on a show rather than offering any real insight. Just watch what he says next, you'll see exactly what I mean.
I guess for me, the one thing that I just want to finalize is the renovations on the FDMG Academy. You know, we've been almost done for so long, and now we're at the floors, but I'm still scared to say we done, because every time I say we done, something else comes up. So, you know, I ain't been saying nothing. My thing is, when it's done.
But what does that have to do with your mental state? I get that you're working, and I'm using that term loosely here, because clearly, your definition of working might not be the same as most people's, but what are you actually doing? How are you managing your mental well-being? What steps are you taking to stay balanced?
That's when I'll announce it. You know what I mean? I was supposed to go back to the Breakfast Club, and I text Charlamagne, I said, I'm not coming back up there one more time to tell people we almost done. You feel me?
Yeah.
When we done, I'll schedule with you. I'm not going up to Power 105 again until we done. I'm tired of saying it myself.
Absolutely.
You know?
But sir, that's not the question you were asked. The question was about you, how you feel, where you are mentally. That has nothing to do with the school building or any project you're working on. It's about your personal well-being. And something I've noticed about Umar is that he always circles back to the same talking points. He never misses a chance to mention that text exchange with Charlamagne or how he refused to appear on Power 105. It's almost become a routine for him. He repeatedly brings up the line about texting Charlemagne, the phony false god, and how he won't go on that show. I'm not sure if he brings it up because that's one of the few interactions he's proud of or just something he uses to reinforce his narrative, but either way, he seems to return to it every chance he gets. Let's see where he takes it this time.
I mean, so when we done, that's when I'll do it, man. But we real close. When I fly back home tomorrow, I got to get to the school. They laying the floors now, and
So, this happened around last Wednesday or Thursday, which means the flooring work should have been completed over the weekend. By now, Umar should be doing a podcast or live stream giving an update about the floors, right? But here's what stood out to me. In his most recent video filmed inside the building, he was talking about making shirts that say "Where the school's at" and walking viewers through the place, but he never actually showed the floors. That struck me as odd. If the floors were supposedly being installed, why not show them? And of course, that leads to a bigger question: where did the money for the floors come from? No one seems to have followed up on that. None of Umar's supporters have publicly asked, when were your bank accounts unfrozen? Because remember, his accounts were reportedly frozen for a while, meaning he didn't have access to funds. Then, suddenly, the work started again, and money seemed to reappear out of nowhere. I'm just pointing that out. It really feels like he's playing right in front of everyone's faces.
once that's done, we'd be applying for our certificate of occupancy. That's going to be interesting because the city has not been our friend. They tried to sell the school behind our back last month for some frivolous expenses that we should not have even owed.
I'm going to stop myself here, and I know some people might not like this, but it needs to be said. Umar Johnson has a pattern of creating these imaginary barriers to his own progress. For example, he claims he can only hire teachers who meet certain arbitrary criteria, or that he can't open his school until he's married to 2 queens. He constantly sets up these unrealistic, self-imposed conditions, and then uses them as excuses for why things aren't moving forward. Another example is his insistence on hiring only black contractors who are willing to work for free, which just doesn't make sense. Now, pay attention to what he says about the certificate of occupancy. He's already preparing the narrative for why it supposedly can't be obtained. My guess? Once the floors are finally installed, he'll claim the certificate couldn't be approved, and somehow, it'll be Delaware's fault instead of admitting the building still isn't ready. Watch closely how he frames it, because it sounds like he's already laying the groundwork for that excuse.
When I fly back home tomorrow, I got to get to the school. They laying the floors now, and once that's done, we'd be applying for our certificate of occupancy. That's going to be interesting because the city has not been our friend. They tried to sell the school behind our back last month for some frivolous expenses that we should not have even owed. So I'm gonna stay positive, but I'm not looking forward to the inspection because, you know, they can nitpick you to death on that.
Absolutely.
You know, so when people say when you're going to actually be done, that's not in our hands. We have to see what the city says, you know, but I'm hoping after all we've been through, they just say, go ahead. If it's all in order, just passing, you know, but that hasn't been the experience. Like everything we've been through with the city has been a fight, you know, even to get a permit for the festival. They ain't want to give us that, you know, so it's really been a tug of war with them. I'm just hoping that we don't have to have a protest. I'm hoping we don't have to take them to court for discrimination. I mean, the bureaucracy is mostly black. The mayor's white, but the bureaucracy is black. But discrimination is discrimination, even if you're the same color, you know. So I'm just, you know, I'm gonna just put it in the Lord's hands and see. But we knocking on the finish line. So if all goes well, we should be able to apply for the inspection before the end of the year.
All right, so here's what's happening. He's already preparing everyone for the outcome that nothing is actually going to move forward. He's setting the stage in advance. He's saying things like, we applied for the certificate of occupancy, but they're going to nitpick everything. That's his way of lowering expectations and shifting blame before anything even happens. But the truth is, we already know the condition of those buildings. They're not ready for occupancy, and they're clearly in poor shape. This isn't about nitpicking, It's about the fact that the facilities simply aren't up to standard.
This is something that most people don't understand in general. Just starting a business is tough, right? And then when you're doing something in the community, it's going to be a lot tougher. When you're dealing with that much square footage, they could find something wrong anywhere. Oh, well, in this corner here. But a lot of people that have never started a business, have never gotten any type of education, what it's like. They have no idea.
Never opened a school, never ran a school, but they're experts in our school.
Yeah, but let's be honest here. He hasn't opened a school, he hasn't run a school, and he's not an expert in anything outside of talking. That's the reality. And that's what makes this so interesting, because, sir, you're not qualified in any of the areas you constantly speak on. You're not even experienced in tutoring, weekend programs, or summer enrichment sessions, all things you could have easily been doing during this entire time. And even if, by some unlikely turn of events, he does manage to get that certificate of occupancy, what then? The school year is already well underway. Does he really expect parents to pull their children out of their current schools mid-year just to enroll them in his program? He's talking about possibly getting approval around the end of the year, maybe January. So, let's assume he gets it by January 1st. Who's going to transfer their child to a new, untested school for just a few months before spring break and Easter? At best, students would only attend for 10 to 12 weeks. Then what? Summer break starts, and the whole thing resets. And beyond that, he still needs to hire teachers, create a curriculum, arrange for meals, and handle basic operations. It's just not realistic. At this point, can we just stop pretending? Let's be honest, this isn't happening. It's time to quit the act and acknowledge that this so-called school project isn't going anywhere.
And I don't get into it, but I hear a lot of it because my supporters send me the clips, and I've heard ridiculous things. I heard people say you can get an HVAC for $5,000. That's a $50,000 unit up there, and that was the cheap one. You feel me? This is not a house. This is a school. You're not getting no HVAC for.
You were talking about that HVAC system 6 years ago. In fact, you've been mentioning it for years now. It's honestly surprising how he's lost track of his own timeline. And now, suddenly, it's back to being about a $5,000 HVAC unit, as if that's some brand new development. Don't get me wrong, $5,000 is a serious expense, but come on. This was something he brought up 3, 4, even 10 years ago. At this point, it's time to stop recycling the same talking points and move on.
$5,000, you know what I mean? Every utility that we had repaired, plumbing, HVAC, electric, every one cost us well over $100,000. Nothing was under $100K for repair. So when I hear people say he could have got this done for $5,000, you don't know.
How much do you really think he's done? Because honestly, based on that statement alone, if I told Umar, show me the receipts for those expenses, and I'll reimburse you the full amount, do you think he could actually produce them? He claims the electrical work alone cost over $100,000. Okay, then show proof, a receipt, an invoice, anything from a licensed contractor who handled the job. And let's not forget, when he appeared on The Breakfast Club, he said the school had already been renovated and that it was a $13 million project. So, if that's true, Umar, show us the documentation. Show what was completed. If you can prove it, I'll personally cover that $100,000 myself. But the real question is, could he actually show any legitimate receipts? I doubt it.
What you talking about? You know what I mean? It's a whole nother level. But my thing is, if you never did it, why are you speaking on it? And if you're not doing any...
You haven't done it, you just haven't. And honestly, I say this with respect, because I actually like this man. But I also feel a bit bad for the Danza Project. They're a solid platform on the rise, trying to feature interesting guests and bring more attention to their show. No harm in that, props to them. But let's be real here, Umar is sitting there, saying things that just don't line up with reality. Danza asked him a fair question, what have you actually accomplished? And that's the point. There's no tangible proof, no visible progress, just a lot of confident talk with nothing to show for it. So, the real question stands, What evidence do you have, sir, that you can do what you claim? What proof exists beyond the speeches and the slogans? Because right now, it's all words, and I'll wait for something concrete.
For the people while you speaking on it. See, that's my thing. Definitely I don't think people who don't do work could criticize people who do work. Now, if you doing the work, you say, look, I built me a relevant institution. You can speak to it because you did it.
All of this nonsense needs to be challenged. People have to start holding him accountable. If you're one of Umar's supporters, it's time to ask the real question: where is the evidence? He keeps claiming he's building institutions, but let's be honest, he doesn't have one. What he has are 2 abandoned buildings, not functioning schools or active programs. So again, sir, what institutions have you actually built? Stop deflecting and give a real answer. The truth is, no one in his circle ever presses him on this. No one follows up with that basic, necessary question: Umar, what have you really accomplished? Meanwhile, the Danza Project, the very platform that interviewed him, has built more than he has. They've created something tangible, something that actually exists and grows. They shouldn't downplay their own achievements in comparison.
We're being questioned and criticized by people who do nothing. And that's why I'm so tight-lipped on it, because I'm like, I don't owe you no answers. On top of the fact you never donated, on top of the fact you never drove by there and picked up a piece of trash, you questioning something that you don't support financially, you questioning something that you've never been a part of in your entire life. You've never been a part of anything that progressive as building an institution. So why are you expecting me to be accountable to you?
Why aren't you accountable to your donors? That's the real question. And honestly, an even better question might be, why aren't your donors asking these things themselves? It's fine if you're not accountable to me personally. That's not the issue. You can keep doing whatever you're doing with that so-called school project, but I'm still going to call it out when it doesn't add up. That's not going to change. But seriously, why don't you feel any responsibility toward the people who financially supported you? Why aren't you keeping them updated, showing progress, or at least being transparent about where their money is going? Your donors should be your biggest allies. They're the ones who could promote your work, attract more supporters, and help expand your mission. But you're not even engaging them or keeping them informed.
So how do you keep it together? Back to that mental health thing, like how do you feel?
I'm gonna be honest with you. The haters, the struggle streamers.
This man really has the nerve to call someone a struggle streamer, while he's out here begging for Cash Apps and PayPal donations every other sentence. The irony is unbelievable. Mortisa, could you please send me something on Cash App? Please, PayPal, please. That's him, constantly asking for money, yet somehow trying to mock others for struggling. Come on, sir, stop it. Just stop. You're calling someone else a struggle streamer while you're literally streaming from your car. And honestly, that's the best camera setup you've had in months. Half the time you're on some outdated phone, sitting in or near that same old abandoned building, pretending it's progress. It's time to cut it out. The hypocrisy is just too obvious.
They really helped toughen me up to the criticism, because we've been dealing with it from the first day we took a donation in St. Louis, Missouri, April of 2014.
Just stop and think about what you're saying. You've been collecting donations for years, and even if we take the most generous estimate, let's say since 2014, that's 11 years. 11 years of fundraising, and still, nothing has opened. Not a single functioning classroom, not even a preschool. You don't have an after-school program. No summer camp. No Saturday tutoring sessions. Nothing. What exactly have you been doing all this time? And to Umar's supporters, please, step forward for a moment. Why do you allow this man to keep playing in your face like that? Do you genuinely enjoy being misled, or are you just so desperate to believe in something that you'll accept anything, no matter how flimsy it is? I can't wait for this full interview to drop. We're going to go through every line of it. Because right now, he's claiming that the haters are what keep him strong. But here's the truth, doing actual work should be what builds resilience. If he truly focused on progress, started a Saturday program, a tutoring club, anything, he wouldn't have so many critics. Honestly, at this point, even starting a simple book club would be something. Call it the Umar Johnson Abandoned Building and Used Tire Book Club, if you have to. Just do something, my guy. Anything.
St. Paul's College in Virginia went up for sale because that's what we wanted. We wanted that HBCU, but they wanted $2 million and we couldn't raise it in time, so they sold it to the Asians who currently have it now. So then that's when we said, well, we just gonna find us a regular school. So from 2014 till 2019, we school hunted. We found FDMG in 2017, but we couldn't afford it at the time. So we just stayed in negotiations with the owners, and then finally, February 2019, they gave it to us. So 5 years to find a school, which in my opinion, that's not a long time to raise the money and find it. 5 years ain't bad at all. And then you go from 19 to 25, right? So you're looking at 6 years of us renovating. It should have only taken us 2 or 3, but there was a lot of scamming going on with the contractors we were using. We really got done dirty by them. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to use Caucasian work.
So, he's got this whole series of unfortunate events thing going on, literally. There's even a book by that name, but at this point, it might as well be about him. Because every single time something goes wrong in Dr. Umar Johnson's life, he's the victim. Always. It's never his fault. Somebody's always scamming him. Somebody's always hacking his Cash App. Somebody's freezing his bank account. Somebody's blocking his progress. Like clockwork, every failure, every delay, every excuse has a villain. But somehow, the villain is never Umar. He never says, hey, maybe I didn't manage my money right. Or, I picked the wrong contractors. Nope. Instead, it's always black folk are scamming me. According to him, every black contractor in Delaware is corrupt. Electricians, painters, carpenters, HVAC guys, lawn care crews, all scammers, apparently. But come on, man. At some point, you gotta stop blaming everybody else. Because the pattern's obvious now, when everything goes wrong every single time, maybe the problem isn't everybody else. And you already know what's coming next. When the city refuses to give him that certificate of occupancy, he's going to say it's their fault too. The city of Delaware hates me. They're blocking black progress. He'll probably call for a protest, maybe a boycott, just to deflect attention from the truth. But let's be real, the only reason he even called the county in the first place was to set them up as the next scapegoat. Because deep down, he knows that building was never ready. Everybody knows it. The place is falling apart. So instead of fixing the problem, he's spinning another "they're out to get me" story. Classic Umar.
Because I wanted to keep the money in the community. The people who gave us the money black. I want to keep the project black. Right. But I had to wake up one day and say, yo, if you're waiting on your people to do this for you, it may not get done. And let me put that in context. You're talking about the second smallest state in the country, right? So you don't have much to pull from anyway. And then the city of Wilmington requires that your contractors be licensed in the state and licensed in the city. Mm-hmm. So for example, in Pennsylvania, if you're licensed by the Commonwealth, you can do work anywhere in the state. You got to be licensed in Delaware and then licensed again in Wilmington. You're already dealing with a small pool of available contractors, and then they add that on top. So I say it all the time. We have the best situation in the worst location. And when I say worst location.
And see, that's the wild part. It actually makes things worse. Because when Umar starts painting licensed professionals as scammers, that's not just a lazy excuse anymore, that's flat out disrespectful. Think about it. These men and women went through all the work, all the training, all the paperwork to become licensed contractors in the state of Delaware, and then went a step further to get approved in the city of Wilmington. That takes effort, time, and money. But in Umar's world, they're all con artists. Electricians? Scammers. Painters? Scammers. Carpenters? Scammers. Floor guys? Scammers. Apparently, everybody's a scammer except Umar Johnson. He's the only honest man in the story, the lone hero building institutions for the people. But let's call it what it is, you can't keep failing over and over, blaming every single contractor you hire, and expect people to believe the problem isn't you. Because at some point, if everybody else is the issue, maybe you're the common denominator.
I'm simply speaking of the limited pool of resources in terms of contractors and the strict stipulations that are required for you to work on a project there. You know, if that same school was in Detroit, Chicago, Philly, we'd be done already, only because you got so many plumbers, you got so many HVAC.
But you said the building was already renovated. You claimed it was ready to open when you appeared on The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne and Fawn Falls, thanking God for it. So why are you now saying all this additional work needs to be done? If we go back, you mentioned a $13 million renovation, you called it state-of-the-art. Maybe editor Jason can even insert that clip where you proudly talked about how advanced and complete the building was. So, what changed? Because at this point, there are only a few possibilities, either you weren't being truthful to Charlemagne, or you're not being honest with the Danza project, or maybe you've just been inconsistent with everyone. Either way, the stories don't line up.
You got so many elections, you could go through 30 of them until you hit the right one. But you in the second smallest state, only a handful of black folks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Contractors that you can really, you know, go to. And everybody we used came highly recommended, by the way. We didn't just grab people. These were people say, get him, get them. We got the people we were told to get, and they still didn't do us right.
Shout out to the Danza Project. I genuinely believe they're doing their best, and I want to give them credit for that because creating content isn't easy. I understand the effort it takes. But honestly, Umar Johnson isn't the opportunity or the breakthrough you might have thought he was.
The pool is so small,
when the pool
and the
is
competition isn't great, it's tough, you know.
And we ran into situations where sometimes, if I don't take the plumber, the electrician say I can't take the job. You feel me? Because that's my man. Right. So since you're not taking him, I can't do it. I'm like, damn, what that got to do with you? I need this, you know what I mean? So it was a lot of that. Where I like the electrician, don't like the plumber. I like the HVAC guy, don't like the electrician. So, you know, it's networks.
Yeah.
You know, and you're dealing with a really small city, and you are outsider coming from Philly. I had to deal with some of that too. You know what I mean? Because even though I get a lot of love.
See what I mean? Everything with him turns into a series of unfortunate events. Somehow, there's always a new excuse. Now the painter and electrician are supposedly in cahoots. Everything's a conspiracy. Nothing is ever Umar's fault. This man takes zero accountability for anything. Not one thing. At some point, he needs to just own it. Say, you know what, I made mistakes. I didn't manage things right. Let's fix it. That's all people want. But instead, it's always someone else's fault. And here's the thing, isn't the project supposedly done? So why are we still hearing excuses? Why aren't we celebrating progress? The man said the floors are being laid this weekend, right? That means he's at the finish line, just a certificate of occupancy left, apparently.